got a cinder block and a diamond blade. This is a diamond Lennox blade. We're gonna go ahead and just kind of cut some smaller pieces off of this and see how long it takes to see what happens. Close enough. Obviously it will cut it, and it seems like there's still plenty of grit on the blade itself, so that is a good thing. We're going to set that right there to keep that camera from moving so much. So we'll try out a different one here. And just for fun, we're going to see if the Milwaukee axe that we were using earlier, that we kind of messed up on the steel, would actually cut through this. Cinder block is actually softer than most people think. It's actually not that hard at all, but we'll go ahead and see what it does. Moving here. Now, will the axe blade, is that pretty cool? Yeah. Has very many people tried and tested that? Probably not. But if you've got a small amount to do and all you got's a demo blade, hey, it'll do it. It'll probably do it with cinder block, and it'll probably do it with brick. It's not going to do it with floor tile, and I guarantee you it's not going to do it with high strength concrete, actual real concrete. Like I said, cinder block's a lot softer than most people think. There's a lot of videos that have demonstrations on cutting cinder block, simply because people think it's as hard as concrete, but it is absolutely not. So, all right, it's getting a bit dusty in here for this, so we're going to use a mask, and we'll go ahead and give the rigid a try, see what it does. With the narrower teeth, we just don't know. I mean, it was kind of cool that the other one did it, but we'll see if it works on this one or not. you're gonna ruin your blade pretty quick, but it will do it. Like I said, concrete is not very hard at all. It's just like a marketing thing that people use to drill and cut concrete with a lot of promotional items. So will a bimetal blade cut concrete? Yes, it will. This is, let's see, probably, what is it, 18 TPI, thin metal blade. What do you know? The wood blades actually did better cutting this stuff than the metal blade. The big toothy blades did better on this stuff. But that's going to take forever to cut through that. Oh, I must have been cutting through here too. So it will cut it. It's just going to be real slow and you're going to burn up a bunch of blades doing it. But can you save yourself an emergency trip to the store? You can. It's just going to be more expensive in the long run than getting a proper blade for it. Alright, Diablo carbide cutting edge. This is the carbide grip blade. This will definitely cut through this. It'll probably just take a little while to actually get all the way through it. You got plenty of carbide left on there, and it'll cut through that, so it's definitely a nice versatile blade, and cut through it fairly nicely. Alright, just for the sake of not wasting blades here, hopefully this little guy will cut through that. Looks like it should. But this is going to be our small, teeny tiny, but it's going to be the Diablo carbide cutting edge blade. definitely will cut it. And it looks like most of our carbide is still intact as well. Once again, plenty of diamond aggregate on there still. Seems to look pretty good and still be intact. I don't see any bald spots, and it'll definitely cut your concrete block. Also making the smoothest cut would be the diamond. Alright, so after doing all this testing, we really get to see what blades work on what and why. And you know, usually the brand doesn't really matter. There's you know, Diablo, Milwaukee, Lennox, they're all putting out a pretty good quality product for the most part. The only one that seemed to have the most advantages, clearly an advantage, are the Milwaukee axe, simply because of this tooth design. You can see it clearly beat. I mean, we beat the crap out of this stuff, cutting metal and stone and all the stuff that it's not designed to do on purpose to see how it holds up. And you can see that it definitely, this thin hook tooth design is far not as good as the Milwaukee design here. So that was a distinct advantage. Most of these bimetal blades, I mean, if you have a Lennox and you have a Diablo or the Torch from Milwaukee, that's going to be, you're going to get roughly the same. I mean, it's not going to be a huge significant amount of difference like we saw with this one here. Biggest thing to remember is if you need thin cutting, you're going to cut like maybe circles or something like that in wood or drywall, your thinner blades are better. But these thicker blades disperse the heat more on these bimetal blades. So they're going to last longer, and they're also not going to jam and buck and bend nearly as bad as these thinner blades. We could see that pretty obvious with like this one right here. If this was a nice thick blade like these, it would have held up a little bit better. What was interesting to see was where the diamond shined and where the carbide abrasive shined. They cut, but they take a long time to do it. So it is nice to be able to, I would say it would be a good idea to have some of these in your toolkit. And the diamond took longer as well, but it was the only one to cut the actual hardest thing, which was the drill bit at a 66 Rockwell hardness scale. That was the only thing that actually managed to cut that and cut it cleaner than anything else. When is that going to be an application for you? I don't know why you need to cut a drill bit in half or some steel that hard, but at least we know it does it. The new players in the game are the carbide tipped, and that's where I got to really see what happens here when I wanted to see what carbide did versus carbide, because these are both carbide, but this is a carbide tooth and this is a carbide grit. The carbide grit was obviously very slow, and I was super impressed by these blades. The only problem seemed to be that the carbide would break. That's carbide's only issue, is that it's extremely strong, extremely durable, super, super hard material. Its downfall is that it's brittle. It deals with the heat better than anything else. Any other kind of steel deals with the heat great. The heat doesn't really affect it and break it down like it does these bimetal blades. However, getting it on a product and getting it to where we can use it properly seems to be the issue. These blades would last longer because the carbide is a grit than these, and that seemed to be the main problem, is that the carbide would just shatter and shear off of there. And then of course this one right here, you know, this thing did really well right up until, because this one is a solid strip, and these have individual pieces of carbide brazed onto each tooth. When this flexes, it doesn't affect the cutting edge. However, when this one flexed, when it got hot, you can see it got hot right here, then the metal backing it flexed. And when it flexed, because it's one solid piece of carbide with little teeth in it instead of the individual chunks, that's when this blade broke down and failed. So when you see this one at the store, keep that in mind. This blade will cut, but if you get any kind of binding or flexing, it's not going to hold up, and then the entire blade is going to be destroyed and you're not going to have anything to cut with. So Diablo is the only one that I know of right now that actually is infusing the carbide into their blades. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, as of right now, I'm not buying any more bimetal blades whatsoever. At the end of the day, that's what's going to stay in my Sawzall, and that's what's going to stay in my bag. They come in different sizes. You can get the little ones, this here, all the way up to the big 9-inch ones right here. But they just do everything. It's the best all-around Sawzall blade that I could see. It's going to cut your cast iron. It's going to cut steel, mild. That was the other issue with the carbide grit, is that if you cut something softer like aluminum or even the mild steel, it begins to plug this up, and then it starts to generate heat, and then it's going to start breaking down the blade. That's not what you want to have happen. These were able to cut through that and not gum up, because there's a much larger space right here. Did the axe cut through wooded nails slightly faster? Yeah, it did. But you're going to have these and these if you want to use that. I can only see that these would be the best all-around blade for me, because they do everything well. I'm also going to keep some of these and the diamond ones just in case you get into something rough and maybe you break all the teeth off. At least you'll have something for backup. But if you have a diamond, if you got a carbide grit, and you got one of these carbide tooth blades, or a couple of them, you're gonna last a whole lot longer, and that should cut just about anything. I'm really not even gonna waste my money on bimetal blades anymore, simply because, unless I need to make a fine cut, I guess. But hopefully they'll go back to the drawing board on this one. That one did not seem to work out that well. And for what I saw today, as impressive as these were, you can bet that Milwaukee and Lennox are going to be coming out with something similar to this in the very near future. If I had any suggestions or if I could see anything done different, the way these started to break down was the carbide breaking off, and due to impact, because this is a very violent action. It's a very powerful machine, and it's a rough cut, gouge, I mean, rough and tumble, get it done type of thing. So if they could somehow combine the cutting power of the grit and put some grit, the carbide or even diamond grit, behind the carbide teeth in here, I don't know exactly how that would all work out, but if they could impregnate the steel with carbide up in here, then once the teeth failed and the carbide had failed in the teeth, you would still have something to back you up to get that job done and get it finished. That would combine the best of both worlds, where you're going to have that fast action cutting for the softer metals and wood, and you're going to have that super hard backup plan. So I think there's still some evolving that needs to go on with these, and hopefully between the other two companies, will be able to see that, but as far as I can tell, right now the best blade at the store is this one right here. That's what's going in my bag, and until I see something better, that's where I'm going to stand. So I hope that helps you guys. I hope that helps you pick something at the hardware store, and opened your mind to some other things that you know, we didn't really try before or haven't seen before. And if you got one of these, you can cut just about anything. That's what we found out. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned. We're going to do lots more tool reviews. We're going to do something similar to this with hole saws coming up soon. So stay tuned, subscribe, hit the like button, share this with Facebook, G+, Twitter, all that kind of stuff, and help your buddies out and help them see what they need to see to pick what they need to pick at the hardware store. Thanks a lot.